Headset's not on there. Let me know when I can start.
Sound's gonna be in it. Give it a couple of seconds. One. That's the one thing about doing outside, man. It's a whole different beast.
You got the
So
intro?
bear with me.
You
What
got the,
happened?
you have the intro, you need me to say the
No,
intro.
I'm just gonna go right into it, and then we'll do the intro next time. I told you that we gotta.
I'm talking
Everything
about you
with
want me to say it.
It's up to you. I mean, I don't know if you want to. Do you want to?
I think there should be an intro. This is the first show. To not
Okay.
have an intro? That's ghetto. I'm just saying. You said you had it.
Stand off. I think the.
Welcome to the Mind of a Man show. Your show host is Elder James Jones Jr. Elder James Jones is a graduate of Tampa Bible College in Tampa, Florida. He's also a chaplain, he's a veteran, he's a husband, a father of 11 children. He's truly a man of God and a pastor of many ministries. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your show host this evening, Elder James Jones Jr.
Hello, everyone. This is Elder James Jones, and I want to welcome you to Mind of a Man. And I know you're wondering, why is this show called Mind of a Man? Well, let me tell you. Roughly about 20 years or so ago, I began to help other men with issues and situations, military and church wise. And I began to say, there are a lot of men that have a lot of things on their mind. And Mind of a Man will answer some of those questions that men have on their mind who need help in everyday life about different situations. So, Mind of a Man was created out of helping other men with daily life and with issues. Thanks to Clark TV, that we can reach a multitude of men throughout to have the same questions of other men have on their mind. You say, well, okay, well, what's that birth out of? A relationship to serve and help other men and to help others. And I just wanted to tell you that scripture wise, it's coming from Hosea 4 and 6 and from Romans 12 and 2. Well, Hosea 4 and 6 is that which is, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. And 12 and 2 is, be ye transformed by the renewing of your minds. And that's what we need to do all over, is renew our minds and transform. For it is difficult times that we do everyday life that it's kind of hard to focus and stay focused, and we need those people to help us. We need other men to come along who's gone down that same path, who has been in those same difficult holes and came out of it. And what I mean by holes is you can fall in a deep pit and wondering how to get out of it. And you need a friend, or you need someone that's going to come along beside you that's going to help you out of that situation or walk with you in those situations. And I will tell you, our first topic today is going to be about broken relationships. And broken relationships really hurt a lot of people. They don't say it, they go to work every day, and those relationships affect how they act and affect men how they think. And with that, you need other people who can help you with healing and talking to you and just supporting you and taking you in everyday life. So, what do broken relationships look like? It's broken trust, contempt for others, a lack of affection, hurt, pain. All these things affect how another person feels, how another person reacts to you. There are people who have a lack of trust dealing with church issues and they're hurting. There are people who have affectionate with one another And not even to go with men to women, but there are even business relationships with trust and people who hurt other people. And with those broken relationships come a lot of pain. And with that, a lot of damage. And it affects families, and it affects other family members and brothers and sisters and cousins who have hurt one another, who hurt other family members and aunts and uncles. In those relationships have a way of affecting or metastasizing and growing, and the bitterness and the hatred begins to grow. And if not stopped, or if not reframed mind to change their mindset, it's going to hurt a lot of other people, not just them. And it always does. It's sort of like almost if there was a divorce, you think it would be the pain between the two people. No, it spreads a lot further. It affects the children. It affects the in-laws. It reflects and affect friends in that relationship. So it's not just two people, but it's other people who get hurt in there. And so in the mind of a man, we want to reflect on the everyday man and what they're thinking and what they're going through, and how do we address it. Because with leaving it unaddressed, it's going to grow and really hurt other people. So I want you to take a look at a few things about what do we look for in these relationships, and how do they grow? How do we see it coming? Like feeling unhappy, feeling depressed, being isolated, just angry at people, and attacking other people who have nothing to do with that situation, but they're lashing out. And being isolated, lashing out at people, being angry, we are looking at that and saying there's a lot of hurt there. And that person is looking for someone to help them, or someone to walk with them, someone to hear them and hear their pain. So one of the things I like to address, we always, especially with military personnel and with people who've been in the military and been in jobs, who always are the, we like to say, the critical thinkers. Don't always tell me what's wrong. I need to know how to fix it. And then we can discuss what went wrong. And so how do we go around to look for that? And one of the things I say is we got to have healing. We have to have a different mindset. So one of the things we always like to do is the number one thing we say is communication. If you don't have any communication, that's where your breakdown is. So we need someone to communicate with us. Someone that's going to be willing to be, as we call the bigger person, to apologize. But another critical thing that we need is someone to listen. Because if you don't listen, then you can't get to the root of the situation. So, in closing, with our topic being broken relationships, and our subject being what's underneath your lid, meaning that what are you thinking about? I want to read you something that I found that was very interesting. And it goes like this. Everything you do in your life, you do because your brain. Without your brain, nothing else works. It is the channel that controls your motor functions, your speech, and all other functions. When your brain dies, nothing works. Nothing else can work. What the brain is to the body, the mind is to the soul. The spiritual man has reached the point where he consistently, although not perfectly, appraises, evaluates, and examines things from God's perspective. That is how we will change minds and change hearts. Well, thank you. And stay tuned, for in the next 5 minutes, we will come back with my friends, my guests, Michael Anthony and Garrett Patterson. Thank you. Still eating.
You got a response already. You're doing great there.
Play the video. The video game.
So how long do I have? I have.
Do me a favor, just check this make sure it's good. Great. Okay.
How many minutes do I have before we come back on?
My dog.
Bottle up inside. I can't breathe, always under arrest. 8 minutes, 36 seconds. Let's come together, we don't have much time. Some won't get it, they'll get left behind. There's a process of elimination. The cops keep killing me, my own keep killing me. Racism and gentrification.
Early screening for autism.
There's a
may be
plot to
lifetime
destroy the whole nation. The right questions will provide a solution. Who wrote the Constitution? We need restitution. Is it because I'm a black man? Is this about skin color? All I wanted to do is love, but I'm hated by my own brother.
Well, we're back, Mind of a Man, with my guest and friend, Michael Anthony. He's going to give his intro about himself, as well as about a broken relationship that he's not only went through, but had healed from. Mike.
All right. Well, my name is Michael Anthony. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I have 6 kids. Hey, Akila, how you doing? That's my wife. Um, I grew up in church, and that was my life. My grandfather was a pastor. We stayed in the duplex. My grandfather stayed downstairs. I stayed upstairs. So every day at the house, it was some form of church. And then when we left the house, I was at church all the time. So I had this, and I'm saying this for a reason, because I had this, the way I learned at church. They tell you the first 5 years of a marriage is going to be hard, and it's just what it is. So and I thought that's what it was, and I got married, and it's my first marriage. I am on my second marriage. This was my first marriage, and we had differences in the marriage, and I was broken. I was dealing with someone who was still trying to understand themselves as me trying to understand myself. And I learned after the fact that we weren't really ready. We really weren't ready. So that caused a lot of issues. Me going to jail, me being away from my kids for a short time, and not being able to function as a father like I really wanted to. What helped me to heal was me learning to change the way I viewed the whole situation. Because in the beginning I was blaming. Well, she did this and she did that, and that's why I did this, so it's her fault, it's this. And I had to sit down, and God had to really tell me, like, listen, he that findeth the wife findeth a good thing. You went and found her. And at the time, she was my good thing. But because I didn't understand who I was, she didn't really understand who she was, so we couldn't be who we needed to be to each other because we didn't understand who we were.
All right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I had to start looking at it from that perspective. Now I had to look at it from what can I learn from this situation? And with doing that, a lot of the blame made a U-turn. Because it was, well, you the one who chose her.
Right.
You the one who said, marry me. You the one who did all of this. So some of that's on you, sir. And you didn't take the time to listen to those who came before you, because they say warning comes before destruction. Or, the information come before the experience. They say a wise man learns from information, but a fool learns by experience because he knows no other way to learn.
Right.
And I was learning through my experience, going through this relationship, not know who I was. So I had to start taking accountability of my action, the things that I did, and start learning who I was. And from there, healing started for me. The marriage was over, but healing had to start for me because now there's kids involved, and I still have to deal with their mother. So I can't come to her with that crazy drama, especially when it's dealing with my kids, because now I have 3 sons. I also have 3 daughters. But my sons, it's my sons, my youngest daughter's mother, who I was married to. They need to see how a man deals with challenges, not a boy.
Right.
I was a boy for a long time. I had to become a man to show them this is how you deal with challenges.
Right.
So reaching into myself is what helped me to heal.
So how do your sons view the relationship now with you and their mother?
But for them, it's like it's normal for them, because they were so young when we divorced. They were so young. There's still certain things that they don't understand, like why there's so much distance and how come we're not like other families and stuff like that. So those questions have come up, but they're coping because it's like, well, this is just what it is. You know, this is how it is. We understand it. You know, but I have to let them know that your first 5 years of marriage don't have to be tough. You know, I'm teaching them now to be real young men. One thing that I didn't do in my first relationship is when I was in my first marriage, when I was angry or mad, the gentleman sat down for a second. The gentleman didn't come back out until I was happy. And some of the things I'm doing different is, like I teach my boys, you open the door for the lady, whether you're mad or not, because your anger is only temporary. So what you look like going through a door and then shutting it back real fast because you're mad, it could probably hit her, jack her up, and now when you feeling good and you want to try to chummy up to her, she's in a whole new different mood. You know, so you can't operate that way. That's being inconsistent. If you're gonna be a gentleman, you gotta be a gentleman through every emotion.
Right. So you're trying to teach them not only to be a gentleman, but consistently with the relationship
Yeah.
towards understanding how God made men and how they need to be the coverers of their home.
Right.
How to have a proper relationship
Mm-hmm.
and not a mate relationship.
There you go. Yeah.
So my next guest here is Garrett Patterson. And Mr. Patterson,
Yes, sir.
tell us about a broken relationship that you have had and healed from.
I've had many broken relationships. Very many broken relationships. And I guess I can honestly say some of them I've healed from, and some that I believe I haven't healed from. But it's a process that I did learn. It's a process. And I learned also it starts with me. You know, a lot of times when we in these relationships, whether it's personal, family, business, or whatever, we, like he said, we always want to blame the other person.
Of course.
You know?
It's a lot easier.
Right, exactly.
It's a lot
You know,
easier.
instead of looking at, okay, what did I do to maybe cause this turmoil or for it to have some type of negative effect in this relationship? So what I started doing was I started looking at the inner me. You know, even after my second marriage for 20 years, you could have never told me at the age of 60, right now today, that I would be sitting here divorced. You couldn't have told me that maybe 10, 20 years ago. But, you know, life happens, you know, we go on. I believe a lot of it was a breakdown in communication, and not just on her part, but a lot of it was on my part. You know, even after that, that separation, that divorce, that's when I had to start looking at, okay, what is it that you could have done to contribute something better, or something more positive in that relationship? You know, and you know, I came up with a few answers. So I said, well, the next relationship.
The next relationship.
The next relationship.
Not the next marriage, but the next relationship.
Well, it's got to. Now, do we want to go there? Because it's got to build a relationship before it can go into marriage, right?
Right.
Okay. So the next relationship, I would know how to handle myself better.
Right.
Versus in the way I think, the way I act, the way I move. But I think the most broken relationship was like when my mom passed when I was 17 years old, 2 weeks into basic training. think we had that discussion one time before, and that's gonna always be a healing process, I believe. You know, it never gets any easier, but my Heavenly Father shows me year after year how to deal with it to get stronger. Well, no, to get stronger in how to deal with it. So I think my healing processes start with me. Like Michael Jackson said, you gotta look at the man in the mirror. You know, and a lot of people don't want to look at the man in the mirror because they're afraid of what they're gonna see. And if they see that they need to change, then change is very uncomfortable. It's the unknown, you know. That's what faith is. It's the unknown, you know. Faith are the things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, and it's that part. It's the evidence of things not seen that people be afraid to. They want to make that change, even though they know they need to make it, but they're afraid to make it because they don't know what's on the other side.
Well,
And
then
I
you're
struggle
operating
with
that means that we're operating in self then, because that's not operating in faith when we have done that.
Well, that's the majority of us. We operate in self.
So I want to ask you this question. Do you think the broken relationship that hurts the worst is family or church hurt?
Oh,
I'm coming to both of you, but I'm gonna start off since
I would
Mr.
say
Patterson
church.
got the mic.
I would say church hurt because there's a lot expected when it comes to fellowshipping with other Christians,
other believers.
other
Okay.
believers. Well,
Got
yeah,
it.
we're gonna say believers. Yeah, let's say believers. Other believers, and a lot of times we don't receive what we expect to receive, and when we don't receive that, then we feel like we've been ostracized or set aside or pushed to the side, you know. And because I've actually heard people say, you know what, I went to this church and I walked in the door and the usher didn't greet me. So I said, okay, so what do you do? And I said, they said, yeah, I never went back. I said, why you didn't go back? Because they didn't greet me. So they felt they were looking for that hospitality. As soon as they walked through the door, they didn't receive that. So now that's they hurt from that. And there's been other incidents of church hurt. You know, people want to speak to the pastor, can't get to him, especially if it's one of these big mega churches.
But
you know?
but I want to say that particular incident is not as much of a broken relationship, because a relationship requires me to have some type of intimacy with you. What I mean by that is
Right.
I gotta have a relationship with you. I gotta somehow know of you
Mm-hmm.
in order for the relationship to be broken.
Mm-hmm.
That right there is a contact, a person having a contact with someone that they felt as though I was not welcomed. But when you have a broken relationship, when I'm talking about a broken relationship and about church or family, I'm talking about something where you have spent some time in this particular unction or sanctuary or
Okay.
temple,
Okay.
where the relationship has a lot of times with church, it's trust. Our trust has been either misused, abused, or broken to a point where it becomes almost a physical altercation, or it becomes to a point of bitterness, and almost to the point of where I dare not say not almost, to some point I've seen where certain people say, I hate that particular individual. Because of the grievance of the mistrust and hurt and pain.
Okay.
I ask you that because it's funny, people have that same concept with family.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Because I've seen where brothers have come to the point of not only blows but want to physically put one under
Yeah.
because they did something to mom or dad and have taken something, or I seen where a brother and sister have gotten to it and say, I better not see you the next time, or else.
Right.
The hurt and the mistrust there that has broken apart in that relationship was not how you see in the photo album on the pictures
Right.
that family have.
Right.
True.
Right.
And you wonder, how did we get here?
Yeah.
How did we get here?
I know, for me, I agree with my brother Garrett over there. I believe church hurt is, in my opinion, for me, that hurts a lot more than just family hurt. Even though family is right up there, though, it's close.
It's close.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's
not-
people
it's
that
not-
you,
It's not gonna be,
yeah.
but
It's
gonna
it's
take
close.
over.
Yeah, it's close. Church hurt changed the whole trajectory of my family,
Mm.
right? With my dad. See, my mother grew up in church because her dad, my grandfather, was a pastor. My dad, he didn't grow up in church. So when he first came to church, just like we all do, when we first come to church and we get saved and that burden just that spiritual burden just lifts up off you, and then now you're in this new place and you got this new self and everyone around here, and you're like, man, we're all saved, everybody's good, until you see the realness when somebody, take off their church hat. And my dad dealt with that with the church. He was a songwriter, so he started writing these gospel songs that were more like R&B type style songs. But this is in the mid '70s, when it was all gospel music. Back then was all choirs. It wasn't no, I'm gonna get on a song and sing, because my dad, he could have been the first person to do a gospel mixtape, if I'm not mistaken. You know what I'm saying? Because that was Andre Crouch was one of his boys. But my dad took a song from Lionel Richie, I think it was called Still,
Yeah.
and he switched the words and made it a gospel song. And when he went to perform it, a lot of the members of the church was like, you're going to hell singing that devil's music. And he's confused, like, I'm in church, I'm talking about God, like, I don't understand. So that really messed his mind up. And at the same time, in the denomination I grew up in, I came up in, they were battling for the next bishop in the jurisdiction that we stayed in. And a lot of people didn't want my grandfather to be the next bishop, even though it was leaning that way. More churches came out of his church, so he was the next one up. And some other preachers got together and started doing some sneaky stuff with some other pastors out of town. And then when my dad was at my grandfather's house, they showed up at the house and was threatening my grandfather, like, to put hands on him. But my dad's there, and he stepped up, and so they diminished that whole thing. But that just really messed my dad's mind all the way up to the point where he left Minnesota. He left and went to Las Vegas for 6 months. And the last 2 months of his 6 months, my mom went down there, and then they were gonna move. They were gonna come back up and get us and move us down there, but they had an accident on the way back and totaled the car. They almost died. But from there, when they got back, my mom and dad, they kind of veered away from the church. It was functioning crack addicts for about a good 20 years.
Wow.
So that changed the whole trajectory of our family. And then seeing that growing up, like in church, out of church, in church, out of church, it was crazy. And then being hurt by the church myself, when I was 18, I started going to church for myself. See, I was raised up in church, but just because you're raised up in church don't mean you are in church. And when I decided to get in church, I was under this pastor, and they got real close to him. And one night I was over at his house, and I had fell asleep. Was watching a movie. I fell asleep. I woke up. His hands was in my pants. I'm 18. Now the first thing I in my mind when I woke up and I seen what he was doing, anger didn't come to my mind.
Confusion.
The first thing came to my mind was confusion, because I'm looking at him and I'm hearing echoes of all the sermons he's been preaching, and then I'm thinking about all the stuff I learned from this man.
Right.
I unlearned a lot of traditional stuff growing up and learned some new things, and I'm just sitting there like, man, I can't believe this man. You just got through preaching about fornication last week, and here, look at what you're doing right now.
Exactly.
Like, I was so confused, and then it messed me up. And then now I'm sitting there thinking, like, what is it about me? And see, it's crazy what the devil will do. In that instant, another sermon came to me from the pastors I used to go to before I moved to Kansas City, because this happened in Kansas City. So before I moved to Kansas City, Pastor, they had preached a message saying, if someone's always bringing you gossip, there's something messy about you. So there's something within you that they feel comfortable enough to bring that foolishness to you. So with that, I took that and placed that to this situation. And like, if he's touching on me, is there something gay about me? So, and I'm sitting there, I'm thinking like, no, there's not. I'm sitting there analyzing myself. Like, am I?
Right.
I'm turning on the TV and I'm looking at a guy like, yeah, that don't do nothing for me. So I can't be, but he must have seen something. What is it? I don't see nothing. So now I got to prove to myself that I ain't gay.
Right.
So then I got real promiscuous.
Trying to prove that you're a man.
That I'm a man.
And dealing with different young ladies and broken relationships
Broken relationships.
and hurting people
Yes.
because someone hurt you
Mm-hmm.
who had authority
Right.
in a house called worship.
Yes. Yes. And I had to learn. I had to even look at that situation, and I had to learn that it wasn't so much of what I thought was gay.
Right.
It was the spirit of lust. See, the spirit of lust has no certain box that it's in. It's lust. So people lust for cars, people lust for clothes, people lust for people. So that spirit of lust that was in him recognized the spirit of lust that was in me that I hadn't dealt with, because before I got saved, I was this girl, that girl, this girl, that girl. I could care less.
Yeah, but you was lusting after a female. You
After
weren't
a
lusting
female.
after a male.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
That's where we go back to the man looking at the man in the mirror.
Yes.
See, he had demons that he hadn't dealt with.
Yeah.
He knew he had those demons.
Yes.
And he chose not to deal with them.
Right. So he had his demons of lust, and then my lust. They recognize each other.
Because of the street.
Different directions, but the same spirit.
Same spirit.
So my original question, both of you said church, right?
Yeah.
So my other question is, if that is so, why do we have so many broken families? If that's so, how come we have so many broken relationships in families more than we have in the body?
Go ahead, sir.
No,
Okay.
Let's
No,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think some of it is kind of what I touched on. People not knowing themselves. You know, as far as broken relationships and stuff like that, people not knowing themselves. If you don't fully know yourself, it's hard to fully love yourself, because now you're still discovering who you are. You know. Also with that, when it comes to the families, you have people getting married for just love only. They're getting married because they love this person, that person loved them, so they're getting together, but they're not working on the relationship. You know, because God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. But since Moses' tabernacle, since Adam lost his position of dominion, God has been trying to restore that relationship. He couldn't restore the relationship with the with Moses' tabernacle because the people were too afraid to come in to commune with him. But when David built his tabernacle, the people were in, and God loved that. That's why he says that he wanted to restore the tabernacle of David to build that relationship. It's always relationship.
Okay, so you brought up love. So do you think those unbelievers can love?
Yes.
You can?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
As a matter
What,
of fact,
what does the word say? If the word is correct, and the word tells us that God is love, and those who do not know me cannot love, then how can a non-believer really truly love?
well, first of all, you didn't ask. You said love. You didn't say truly love. But
No, I'm not letting you get off on that one. I'm not letting you get away from that one.
well,
You got if you
I
go,
mean,
if you're gonna quote it,
I believe this.
you got to
I-
stick with it.
I believe this. There are no truly. I believe everybody.
So they
believes
have
in-
the capability.
They have the capability.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
I see where you're going now.
But to answer your question, I believe the breakdown comes with, like we discussed before, trust and communication when it comes to the breakdown of families and broken relationships is because people don't want to, are afraid to trust somebody else with their personal, their inner
The real them.
information, the real them.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because hey, let's be frank about it. We all human beings, and even though the word says thou shalt not judge, we
You got to
do
finish
it.
the rest of that quote though. It
So
just
what?
doesn't stop there.
What
Thou
now?
should not judge. You got to finish up the rest of that.
Yeah, unless you
Yeah.
be judged.
Right.
Right. So
and judge what? Righteousness.
righteousness.
Okay.
Right. So a lot of that is not happening. And it hasn't happened in a long time. And to be honest with you, I really doubt if we ever really get back to that.
Well, we can, and we actually do judge, and we, and what is, in the context of what it's talking about, you do judge. You make judgments consistently, even on your job, right? But we make them the right way according to, let's say, your job, right?
Mhm.
There are certain precautions. There are certain things you do in certain situations. You take what you know and what you learn from your job and apply it to that particular situation that you use to best benefit that job, to have the best outcome for that job, right?
Right.
So the same thing in the body of Christ, right? We have a Bible. With that Bible, right, I call it, most people call it a Bible. I'll call it a love letter.
Okay.
It is a love letter from the Creator to its creation.
Mm-hmm.
And that love letter is telling us that this is how you live out salvation in the contents of life, in this thing we call life, right?
Right.
In this world,
Right.
right? And he's not saying that you're not going to have any difficulties. He's not saying that you're not going to have an enemy. He has explained that in this love letter that says you have a real enemy. Your real enemy is in a heavenly realm. It sits in a spiritual realm. The things that you face in the physical realm has already transpired in the spiritual realm.
Right.
But if you never get taught that, it's like that broken relationship. You don't know how to handle your relationship because if you've never been taught how to have a correct relationship. Now, when we read the Bible, right, Israel, if you don't know, the Hebrews, they court first, right? This is the concept that God is. You don't automatically be like, hey, pull up and say, hey, I like you. I want to have a relationship with you, yada, yada. It doesn't it's not like that, right? So in Western culture, everything that we do so wrong, we think is so right, right? But if we really knew how to have relationships and have God in the midst of it, we wouldn't have the situations that we have. And so what I'm saying to you is this: if you're courting somebody, right? If you're taking your time to really get to know someone, it doesn't require to spend a whole lot of money, but more like a whole lot of time. God's saying, look, if you really want to know who God really is, then you need to spend some time with me. Yeah. Don't give me no 20 minutes on the choir, 10 minutes as an usher and sit down and listen to the sermon for your 2 hours and you done. Is that all you're going to give me? Because then you won't really know me.
Well,
But go ahead. We're talking about broken relationships.
worship is a lifestyle.
Right,
You know,
but
and we should worship him every day. And if we worship him every day, that's us spending time with him.
but then I would have to challenge you on you have to give me the parameters of what you call worship, because what one person calls worship is not what another person calls worship.
Exactly. Everybody
So even everybody can't because the
now
word.
that you said that, see, now that you said that, okay,
Because-
we could, all three of us, right? We can sit right here, look at the Bible, and look at the same scripture,
Uh-oh,
right?
Here it goes. You know what he's gonna come with, but go ahead.
and get a different perspective from what that scripture is saying, because at that time we are reading it for what it fits for us,
Yes, but let's
not
let's
for the body.
no, but let's get something. Let's understand something. The writ, the word, the logos does not change.
Mm-hmm.
The intent that is given is always what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is a noun word. It never changes its meaning. So when someone says, "Oh well, I can get a different perspective," I'm always careful to say, "But his word doesn't change." What perspective are you getting?
Well, if I can interject, a couple of things. One,
Interject on.
a lot of times when you have different perspectives on different things, when they're looking at the same scripture, a lot of that has to deal with how the person's approach is when it comes to it. See, a lot of people will read the Bible as a novel. And when you read it as a novel, a lot of times you won't catch the precepts and you know,
line
you
upon
take it out
line,
of
precept
context
upon
and
precept. Yeah.
you kind of miss certain things. You know
You're
what I'm
missing
saying?
the principle and the understanding
There you
of
go.
a word. You're
There you
getting
go.
information, but
Right.
if you don't know how to apply that
Right.
information, then
Right.
you're taking it out of context.
Right.
And so when we're dealing with broken relationships,
Mm-hmm.
the first relationship that we should always have in any relationship is who? Him.
Him.
Because without the Lord thy God, that relationship is totally in vain.
Right.
You can go do it,
Mm-hmm.
but he's not in the midst of it.
Now,
But go ahead.
there's something I want to say about love, because you asked about love.
Right. And I
And
said that he
I've-
is love,
he-
right?
and-
Because
and-
that's what's written.
That's exactly what it is. But I believe, just like, we know about heaven,
Right.
but there's different heavens. Because
Okay.
right now, my arms, they're in heaven.
Okay, we got it.
There's
We got
different
it.
levels of heaven,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
I think there's different levels of love. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
It's like-
agape
it's like this.
and
There you
yeah.
go.
Yeah,
There's
I
the
got you.
agape, and you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
There's different levels of love. So not everybody's able to love on the level that God's at because they're not there.
Right. So, but what I was
There's
saying
more of
on the
an
right.
immature type
right.
of love that
so,
they have.
So no, but let's call it for what it is. It's not immature. What it really is it's our flesh, right? Because and let's be honest, if we're gonna talk about God
Mm-hmm.
and broken relationships, He's the only one that can heal it, and He's the only one that can say that if I'm in the midst of it, then you can walk in love.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't walk in love. You can't just willfully, okay, Jezebel, I'm in love with you because I love you. No, because if God is not in it, you can't have it. You can get with it, but you best believe if He's not in it, it's not gonna last.
Yeah, you won't.
You're gonna have a whole lot of heartache and pain, and you will definitely have that broken relationship.
You'll experience a limited level of the love that you feel, but you won't. But if you're not, if He's not in the midst, then you won't experience that high agape type love. You won't experience that high love. But there are couples that are in love, and been married 40-something, 50-something years, and been in love for a long time,
Yeah,
and
but-
moving good, and everything's working. But now, are they subscribers to the faith? Not all of them are, but there's still some love there, because it's more than just lust. See, there's different levels of love.
I'm not saying that
Oh, okay.
there's never any of that. you're like Gert. You're taking it out of context. What I said was,
Yeah.
how could a non-believer actually love
Mm-hmm.
when God says, I am love? And if you do not know him, how could you love anyone? How could you love him? You might know, and I wouldn't care really if you're physically having the intimacy. But then, like I always say, let's define the parameters of love. And he's already defined them for us. We ain't got to second guess it. He says, I am. I am love. There's no getting around that. It's no debating about that. So we can come to the understanding that he is.
Yeah.
And with broken relationships, we got to have him in it, right? We can say, right, like your particular situation, when you said I could never had seen that coming. But I always say someone seen that coming, and definitely God seen it coming. But for the person that didn't, it's damaging. And I always say, when you don't sit down, like I read in the beginning to you about, you have to communicate. The number one thing we used to say in the military, right, is the first thing the enemy does is what? Breaks your communication. If he breaks your communication, he can conquer and divide you. Why?
Yeah.
Because you can't communicate.
Right.
Right. Same thing in marriage. If you don't have communication, it breaks everything.
And I like to say,
I look at marriage or relationships, and I tell people this a lot of times. Relationships or marriages, it's like owning a home. If you don't build on it, continue to improve on it, then it's gonna break down.
Right.
You know, and then by the time you decide you want to improve on it, it may be at the point where now it's gonna cost you too much money to do what you want to do with it.
right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so you just you say, okay, well, I just, try to just work through this.
Right,
You know
right.
what I mean? At a slow pace.
Yeah.
But you don't really get to the actual meat of it
Right.
because you didn't start building on it and improving on it,
Right.
from the beginning.
Right.
It's a lifestyle.
But
It
first-
takes work.
Yeah.
But see, first of all, you should have read that owner's manual.
Right.
What the owner man
See,
say?
now, I know I know
What the owner man say?
Husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church. I
Well,
know
well,
what the manual said.
Well, I wasn't gonna say that part.
Oh,
but I was
okay,
gonna
well,
say about the actual owner's manual about the house.
Well-
Before you go put it down, what you go get that house inspector, right? And tell me what's broken on this thing. so I'm gonna get me a home inspector first before I start investing. Because if I get something that's overpaid for and all broken down, I done paid too much money for, then it's not worth it.
So I should have asked my heavenly appraiser, what does this house look like?
I would say before you even got there, you should have got down on them knees and asked him, is this for me?
I did.
And then what was his answer? I'm sorry.
Yes.
He said yes.
Yes. And that's why I went forward.
Okay. So and she said yes.
And she said yes.
And so my question to you is, all these yeses, somebody ain't telling the truth.
No, it's not that somebody's not telling the truth. There was a breakdown
Okay.
at some point that we both never got to
Right.
actually really figure out what that breakdown was.
Mm-hmm.
We
So
just
do you
decided.
Do you know today what the break? Do you know today what the breakdown is?
I truly believe the breakdown was communication. As far as her not understanding where
Where you were currently at?
where I was currently at in life, in the office the position that I was walking in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna say armor bearer. All right.
Yeah.
It drove division because
With her?
yeah, exactly.
So because
Huh?
yeah.
Adjectives.
Yeah.
That's fancy
So-
way of saying armor bearer.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna put it out there, like I said.
You
know,
were gonna put it out
and
there.
I felt like
You felt like. Go ahead.
no, I ain't gonna say I felt like. I actually got angry with the father at a particular time because I was like, okay, I'm doing all this. At least I thought I was doing all this for all the right reasons. Walking in your glory, following in your footsteps, yada yada yada. And so, how did this happen?
And so,
You know,
you remember we talked about it, and I said, it's that Mary and Martha
in the house.
in that situation.
Yeah.
That's what happened to him. And a lot of people in the house of the Lord, they work a lot, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you neglect your personal relationship with Him, it can bankrupt you. Right. It can bankrupt you without you even really fully understanding and knowing that it's bankrupt you. Because why? Because you're in there working, and you're thinking there's nothing wrong.
Right.
And this whole time,
It's a lot wrong.
there's a lot going on.
Wrong.
Right. So
Exactly.
it's sort of like how you bring up the house analogy and you say, there's termites eating it up, and he's like, I don't see that. It was like, I know you don't see it, but I see it, and it is eating up on your structure at the base of your house. And saying you're gonna need these traps to get them out of there, and then you're gonna need to replace what they have damaged.
Right.
And such as also our spiritual life and our relationships. There is things going on, and I always tell people, I say, you're gonna have to address your spiritual life. If you got a strong ground game, and what I mean by that is you know how to plan, you know how to do everything in the physical, and you got a strong ground game, but you lack an air force, that means you don't have no spiritual game. Then you got a whole lot of issues going on, because you're good at figuring out all your situations, right? But you have not prepared yourself spiritually for what's going on in the spiritual realm. So you lack an air force.
And see, it's kind of what I alluded to. Like I tell a lot of young men when I talk to them, they want to get in relationships and start dating and all this stuff and all that. I tell them, because this is what I didn't do, but I tell them, it's good to date that person for at least 18 months. Because when you just together for just a little bit, you're in the honeymoon period. You don't get a chance to really see the real person. After about 18 months, the honeymoon period is over with, and you can start being your real self. See, a lot of times, bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you.
A lot of times we don't take the time, bless you,
Excuse me.
to like they did back in the old days. It's court to get to know someone, and then like brother Gary was saying about the house. When you buy a house, if you don't take care, eventually it's gonna break down. See, that's speaking to the relationship part. That's not speaking to the love in the relationship. That's speaking to the friendship in the relationship.
I care enough about you to tell you that you need to repair some things.
Yeah, or just I care enough about you that I'm gonna take the time to see what it is that makes you happy, what makes you sad, what can I do to help? What can I do to change parts of me so I can blend more with you?
Right.
And if both are doing the same thing, then you're building on your friendship. Because I have cousins that I love, brothers I love, sisters I love, people I love, but I don't always feel the love all the time. Because sometimes they get on my nerves. You know what I'm saying? Because you can love someone, but not necessarily want to be around them. Like, I love you, but stay over there. So.
Well, this has been a wonderful, great conversation about broken relationships. And I will tell you, gentlemen, I look forward to having you back. And I will say thank you to all my people who watched you on live. We appreciate you. We look forward to you next week, same time at 7 o'clock. And our next issue will be, can you handle the consequences.
Ooh.
Look forward to you. Blessings.
I can't believe it's over already. That was fast.
That was good.